All right, Jazz Nation, today we're going to go over a 4-game recap. We've got Boston, we've got Cleveland, we've got Minnesota, and we wrap it up with the 76ers. We're doing a late night film sesh tonight. Just finished watching the 76ers game, and so we'll be talking about all those. Focusing on today, Donovan Mitchell's tear. So stay tuned. Make sure you watch. So, discussing Donovan Mitchell's amazing stretch. He wins NBA Player of the Week last week for the Western Conference. But let's get into each of these games, break them down, see what we think is going to happen throughout the rest of the season, and really why we think the Jazz are now hitting their stride and why the winning streak is occurring. So, first game, jumping into Boston, Jazz win 137-130. Crazy high-scoring game, but what did you see in that one?
Well, not a whole lot of defense in that. Obviously Jason Tatum has an impressive game. What impresses me most about that, he has 37 points, shoots 2 for 11 from the three-point line.
Yeah.
And finishes with 37 points.
I'm telling you, man, we go over this all the time, that the Jazz weakness is the mid-range.
Yeah.
Our defense is not built to cover the mid-range. We cover the three great.
We funnel everything else to Rudy.
So we cover the paint just fine. But the mid-range kills us.
That pull-up right there is deadly. So when you guys like Jason Tatum, we've talked about
Levine.
Yeah, Zach Levine and also DeRozan.
Who are tearing it up this year, by the way. They're both in the top 10 in scoring.
Yeah. I think we're going to see a lot of struggles too against guys like Kawhi Leonard, who have a deadly mid-range, and then Kevin Durant and any
Paul
of those
George.
any of those scorers who aren't just relying on the three but have a good mid-range as well. Chris Paul especially.
Yeah. Chris Paul has been like a Jazz killer, so that makes sense. Tying 2 to 2 together.
Yeah, a little bit worrisome about that, but we'll see as the year goes on.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, on the Jazz side of things, the starters were the name of this game. Like, Clarkson has an okay game with 11 points. Joe Ingles has an okay game with 9 points. But the starters just all brought their A game in this one. Bogey 16, Gobert 18, O'Neal 12, Conley with 29, and Mitchell with 34. That backcourt to me was like, okay, this looks like prime Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum.
Yeah, well, and not only do they drop 34 and 29, Mike Conley has 7 assists and Donovan has 6 assists.
Yeah.
And so, and Mike Conley has 3 turnovers, Donovan has 2 turnovers. Again, probably a little bit more turnovers than you'd like to see, but it shows they're, number one, creating their own shot as well as getting other guys open. I mean, that starting unit, I think the only somewhat disappointment there was Rudy Gobert that game. Has 18 points, 12 rebounds. That part looks great. Has 4 turnovers. Yeah,
that's pretty rough.
Your center can't have 4 turnovers.
Yeah, especially when, Gobert never has the ball in his hands.
No. So 5 for 5 from the field. Again, not a bad game.
Yeah.
But key takeaway, can't have 4 turnovers, but 5 for 5 from the field and 8 for 10 from the free throw line.
Yeah.
If he consistently, number one, get to the free throw line that often, and 2, go 8 for 10, then that's pretty deadly.
Yeah. We, and I know that neither one of us is a big fan of the plus minus. I mean, we both feel like it's a very skewed statistic. We talk about it a lot on this show because there's other people that pay super close attention to it. But for us, it's just kind of like, the numbers don't tell the whole story. However, that being said, I do want to say that our starting 5 on the floor was a plus 63 that game. Like, if you take all of their plus minus and put them together, because you've got Conley plus 21, Gobert plus 17, Mitchell plus 12, Bogey plus 10, Royce plus 3.
Yeah. And, a lot of them are on the court at the same time. So,
yeah, it helps. Yeah. Like I said, plus minus doesn't mean everything. It's a skewed statistic.
Yeah, it's not 1 on 5. But Mike Conley goes plus 21 and Rudy Gobert plus 17. And that's actually typical, I feel like we've seen over games. Donovan Mitchell's always in that mid category. I don't think he's ever the top on the plus minus. Usually it's Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
And I'm personally, I like the plus minus.
Oh, okay.
But like you said, it just depends. Different scenarios, the plus minus that has no factor. I mean, you get guys like Trent Forrest who has a minus 11. He played 4 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
And obviously you shouldn't have a minus 11 in 4 minutes, but the other team catches hot for a couple minutes, and who's to say that that's your fault? You played 4 minutes. Like,
So that makes sense.
But with that starting group, they all played around the same amount of minutes. Plus minus, though, tells a different story in what they did in those minutes. I mean, Royce O'Neal's a +3, which is actually surprising to me because he goes 4 for 4 from the field, 2 for 2 from 3, has 12 points, 5 assists, 10 rebounds.
Royce didn't miss a shot. He also went 2 for 2 from the free throw line.
And he's only a +3.
Yeah.
Well, having more minutes than Bogdanovich and around the same as Conley and Mitchell.
Yeah. Like you said, that's pretty impressive. If you can get 12 points, 5 assists, 10 rebounds out of Royce O'Neal every game.
Yeah.
If Royce O'Neal is like, I know that's like,
he should be a 5.55 guy.
Yeah, but I mean, that like statistic, I mean, that's like 2.5, not quite a triple double, but like 2.5, right? Not a double double.
Yeah.
If you can get that production out of him, we're sitting pretty. Another thing that I saw in this game that was just absolutely incredible to me was our 3-point percentage. I mean, to shoot almost 53% from 3 and then 55% from the field. Like, if you're making more than half your shots, including your threes, you're winning ball games. Like you said, this game, it was super disappointing on the defensive end. How do we give up 130 points to a mediocre Boston team without Jaylen Brown?
Yeah. Biggest thing is turnovers.
Yep.
Jazz had 19 turnovers that game compared to the Boston 6. Also,
I don't see it here. Do you have points off turnovers there?
No, but 9 of those 19 turnovers were steals by Boston, which I'm sure led to a lot of fast break buckets.
Yeah.
And you can see that in the game footage as well. Side note, I don't think this had a ton to do with the game because the Jazz shot well from the free throw line. They went 20 for 23. That's 87%. Boston goes 22 for 22 from the free throw line.
That's a lot of free throws to give up.
A lot of free throws to give up, and that's impressive.
Yeah.
Like, even if you have your best free throw shooter shooting, that's impressive to have it. Jason Tatum goes 11 for 11 from the free throw line.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on the Boston Celtics and Jason Tatum? I mean, they're 12 and 11. They're 1 game over 500. Like, what's going to happen with them? I mean, Schroeder's like on a 1-year lease deal, and he's gone.
Yeah.
Signed a 1-year deal because he's going to get. They got a steal on him price wise.
Yeah.
But he's going to be gone next year.
And he has a good game this game.
Yeah.
26 points.
Horford's old.
But Boston's on their decline.
I agree. And so if you're Boston, do you try and hang on to Tatum and Brown, or do you got to go into rebuild mode?
Tatum's young enough and Brown are young enough that, you can try and keep them. Mm-hmm. Now, I think if you're a Boston fan, you're afraid now of, oh man, Tatum's leaving though, and Brown might leave as well. Yeah. They're going to want to go to a team that's competitive. Jason Tatum's a competitive guy. He wants to win. As well as, if I'm Jason Tatum, so Donovan, every single one of our starters is in the low 30s. Rudy Gobert plays the most minutes with 35 minutes. Mm-hmm. Boston, you got Tatum with 38 minutes. Horford, who is old, 34 minutes. Marcus Smart, 37. Schroeder, 39.
That's a lot of minutes.
That's a lot of minutes for a game that And
I get that this game was in contention. They were right there the whole time. But if you're Boston, how are you not developing these young guys when you're sitting at 500? You're not going to go win the championship this year.
No.
So why burn Tatum out?
Yeah. Well, and there's a few young guys on the bench that and right now we're, do they go into rebuild mode, or do they play these young guys on the bench and try to build with what they have?
Yeah.
And they're not going to have a winning team with the players they have now. Horford, again, too old. He was good a few years ago, too old. Tatum's great. Brown's great. Other than that.
One though that I saw that surprised me because he didn't play. I mean, it was not like he was bad against us, but I watched Williams III play against the Lakers, and he ate Anthony Davis up. He had multiple poster dunks, alley-oops, right on top of Anthony Davis's head.
how do you not play him more, in my opinion? So looking at his stats this game as well, he has 15 minutes with 8 points, 5 rebounds, not a single turnover, a block. He is one of 3 players who are plus on the plus minus.
And I think they will play him more because he actually started that Lakers game.
Yeah, well, he started this game too.
Did he? I didn't remember seeing him.
Well, and he only plays 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's...
Yeah, you got to play him more.
Yeah.
But, well, moving on.
Yeah.
It's not a Boston podcast. Moving on to the next one. In Cleveland, nail biter.
Shouldn't have been.
Starting off the road trip. So I'll be honest, I didn't get to watch this one live. Well, I had to go back and watch it later. Watched it later after looking at the stats. And when I first looked at the box score, I thought, how in the world, Rudy Gobert, do you let Jared Allen and Mobley get 17 and 14 points, respectively, and 10 rebounds and 11 rebounds? To me, when I saw that, I was like, no wonder it was a close game. Rudy Gobert lets these guys go off. But then I watched the game, and I'm like, man, those 2 guys on the floor at the same time, that's a hard guard for any one defender. That's a hard guard for a team to defend.
Yeah, they have a big lineup.
Big lineup and long.
You got Markkanen, Okoro. Both those dudes are pretty big.
Yeah.
And then, you throw Allen and Mobley in there.
Yeah. And
that's a very big lineup.
Garland goes off for over 30 on us on this one, too. He had an incredible game. I mean, the Jazz really got away with one. We stole one on this one. For me, highlight of the game, the absolute, oh my gosh, must watch. And occasionally you see it from Rudy and you wonder why he doesn't do it more. The dunk on Jared Allen right there at the end.
Right on top of his head.
I mean, he gets that rebound and he takes one dribble. And in my mind, I'm thinking he's going baby hook. And I'm like, what are you doing? Stop. Sure enough, right over lefty.
Right on top of his
lefty,
head. Yeah.
Right on top of him, throws it down with authority.
Couple takeaways. Donovan Mitchell, 7 turnovers.
Yeah.
That's horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
As well as Mike Conley, 4 steals. That's one of those games I think we just kind of like,
yeah.
It's just a misfit game in a group of a pretty good a pretty good road stretch here.
Yeah. I mean, we won.
Yeah.
that's the big thing with this game. We won.
Yeah. Yeah, a win's a win. You get what you can.
Yep. Donovan does go for 35. He, we'll talk about this and elaborate a little bit more on it. But this is, I think Donovan's starting to get in stride. 34 against Boston, 35 against Cleveland, and then moving on to the Minnesota game, Donovan ends up going for 36. And all on fairly efficient, for Donovan Mitchell standards, fairly efficient shooting percentages.
Yeah, I thought he had a good game other than just turnovers. Mm-hmm. And those turnovers kind of cancel out a lot of the good stuff he did. With that being said, 6 assists, but you have more turnovers than you have assists.
Yeah. That's
you want at least a 2-to-1 ratio on that. Double.
At least.
Yeah.
Ideally for a guard, 3-to-1.
Yeah. Again, they sneak away with one there. There's not a whole lot to take away from that, especially when the Jazz play these crappy teams. It's hard to be like, oh man, like, do you see that? Like, yeah, that should be happening.
I mean, Cleveland's not terrible, win-loss wise. They're better than Boston this year, but yeah,
the East is horrible.
Yeah, just the idea of Cleveland, you're like, oh, you should trounce those guys.
Well, yeah, and like Markkanen's not bad, Okoro's not bad, Allen's not bad, Garland's actually pretty good. I'll admit that. But those other guys, it's like, oh, they're not bad, like they're not horrible. But the Jazz, we're talking about winning, the Western Conference.
Yeah, we're trying to win championships.
Yeah, and you can't let Cleveland push you to the very end, crunch time.
Nah, and the fact that we had a 15-point lead in the fourth quarter kills me that they took the lead there at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, they came back right at the end and they had the lead after we gave up a 15-point lead. I'm glad that the Jazz have some veteran leadership on the team. A lot of experienced guys now that we can still give up a 15-point lead and find a way to win the game.
Yeah.
So, moving on to Minnesota now.
I liked this game.
This game was a fun game to watch.
This was, and I like this game because it felt like Minnesota came to play as well. And so the Jazz dominating them, especially in that second half.
It was impressive.
Yeah, it comes across as like, oh, it's not like they just played some crappy team who just didn't show up to play. It was competitive, and they just outplayed the other team.
They worked them.
Yeah.
I mean, this game to me is, okay, whatever we've got to do to have this sort of production and this sort of play out of everybody come playoff time is what needs to happen.
Yeah, this is probably the best game I've seen from Bogdanovich.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. We rip on Joe Ingles. We rip on Bogdanovich. We give them both a very hard time. The games that we're covering today, all of those games, I don't really have a whole lot of beef with either of those guys.
Yeah.
Bogey's defense on Karl Anthony Towns
was pretty impressive.
I couldn't believe it. I was shocked.
Yeah, I was shocked that was their game plan to come out with. They decided, let's throw a bogey on Anthony Towns and see what happens here.
Yeah, when the start of the game, first possession for Minnesota and Bogey's guarding him, I'm like, Quinn, you got to be kidding me.
But I guess that's why that guy went to Duke and got his MBA and his
and a law degree.
And is also a coach in the NBA right now.
Yeah, discussions for Coach of the Year in the last couple of years. So.
Yep.
Yeah, don't question him. I've been looking on Jazz, Facebook pages, Twitterverse, all that stuff, and people are like calling for Quinn before these 4 games, calling for Quinn, and I'm like, oh geez, come on.
For him to
saying he doesn't cut it anymore.
Oh my gosh. It is so hard to find a good coach nowadays.
Yeah.
Like the way the game has changed so much, Quinn is very adaptive and is able to roll with how the game's changing.
Yeah.
Because the Jazz 5 years ago with Quinn Snyder are a way different Jazz
than right now. He's willing to adapt versus a lot of coaches are set in their ways.
Yeah. Well, and he looks at his personnel and says, okay, we have these players. This is how we're going to have to play to win.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Quinn Snyder is very underrated. I know the Jazz have good personnel on their team right now, but I think the Jazz could very much be a mediocre team if they didn't have a good coach.
Yeah. And I do love Quinn. Wouldn't want anybody else as our head coach. Taking a little side note here, Dylan and I were talking earlier about great coaches. How freaking good is Steve Kerr?
Yeah. We talked about that the other day in the podcast last week, I think.
Did we?
Yeah, because I think I said, well, was Steve Kerr really that good, or was it Steph Curry and Klay Thompson?
We did say that.
Steve Kerr really was that good.
Yeah. The fact that Golden State's sitting number 1 right now in the West.
Yeah.
You've got Steph Curry. That helps.
That's one guy.
It's one guy.
One guy.
And the fact that he can get everybody else on that team to fill the role to put Steph Curry on the pedestal and have Steph Curry be able to be Steph Curry. It's unbelievable. It's incredible management.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of what we're talking about here and why Quinn Snyder is a great coach and why Steve Kerr is an even better coach is finding what each individual player is good at, building your team around what each player is good at, and setting them up for success, playing their strengths. So I think Steve Kerr has a bunch of guys who play different roles who, Steph Curry, great, amazing. But all those other guys you can't call superstars.
Draymond Green.
He's probably one of on the lower half now of the team now.
Yeah, probably.
But a lot of those.
Don't tell him that.
Yeah, a lot of those. Don't tell his mom that. A lot of those guys on another team wouldn't be anything special.
Yeah.
But Steve Kerr finds a way to pull each strength from each individual player and put it together as a team. And that's why each game they come out and number one, ball movement is incredible.
Yeah.
That's what the Jazz lack. That's the one thing that when we lose, I notice
ball sticks.
And we've talked about, ball sticks. And another reason why Donovan Mitchell's having these turnover problems is because
dribble.
trying to do too much from 35 feet away from the basket. But pulling those strengths from each individual player and getting them to play as a unit, I think that's where your great coaches are found.
Yeah. Couple things to point out on this game that I wanted to say. We had 6 guys in double figures. Royce O'Neal had 9. Rudy Gay had 7. So, we're almost 8 guys. We're almost your 8-man rotation, everybody in double figures. So, this game, everybody came to play. This game, Joe Ingles misses one free throw, which, how do you miss a free throw, Joe? Because he's a good free throw shooter.
Yeah.
But yeah, he goes 4 for 4 from twos, 2 from 2 from 3. He doesn't miss shots.
This is probably the best game I've seen from Joe Ingles all year too.
Yeah.
He and Bogdanovich really stepped it up. As well as, and I don't know if we've talked about this a whole lot, how good is Rudy Gay?
Yeah,
And he does not look amazing watching him play until you watch all the little things he does.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh my gosh. Like, because he doesn't look that good because he looks so just like, no, I'm just going to kind of do me. And like, he looks like just really slow and like lackadaisical, but
different. Honestly, what it reminds me of, right? So it reminds me of Joe Johnson when Joe Johnson was here.
Yeah.
I think Joe Johnson had a much more impressive career than Rudy Gay.
Yeah.
Like Joe Johnson was a stud. However, when Joe Johnson was with the Jazz and how Rudy Gay is now with the Jazz, I think there's a lot of similarities there.
Yeah. Joe Johnson had a more important role because of the other players. Like the Jazz right now are a lot more stacked and deep than they were when Joe Johnson had to play minutes. Rudy Gay, his role, he fits that so well.
Joe Johnson played minutes though come playoff time.
That's true.
I can't help but think that Quinn's kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Rudy, take it easy, play kind of nonchalant, like don't go out there and get yourself hurt. And then come playoff time, it's going to be, all right, Rudy Gay, we need you. Like, let's come, let's play.
So, I mean, T-Wolves, he has, let's pull this up here.
7 points, 6 rebounds.
Yep, 7.6 rebounds, a couple steals.
He struggled shooting.
Shooting-wise, struggled.
But other games, he's been just fine.
Well, and then when we play the 76ers tonight, let's move on to that real quick.
Okay. Yeah, moving on.
Rudy Gay tonight, this is Thursday when he filmed this, has 10 points, 6 rebounds, and shoots 4 for 5 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3. And those aren't like incredible stats, but he plays 18 minutes.
Well, and he's like the 8th guy off the bench.
Yeah, and he is just solid. Yeah. And that's what the Jazz lack, and that's why I think I like him so much right now. Is I'm just like, whenever he gets on the court, it's like, I know what Rudy Gay is going to do.
Yeah,
and it's going to be just like smooth sailing,
dependable, consistent. Yeah. He's going to give you that 10 points a game.
Yep.
So, So moving on then to Philly, 118-96. The Jazz end up winning by a lot, but it never felt like we went on this giant run to get the huge lead. It was just
steady,
we
climb up the
just
ladder,
kept building the lead. And another thing, I mean, Embiid ends up with 19 points, 9 rebounds, which is a good game. I think Joel Embiid has a lot more in him. I was surprised. There was something wrong, right? There was something going on there. I honestly wonder if he's still kind of feeling some fatigue and some side effects from COVID.
Yeah.
Not to make this political. Please do not. We love comments. Do not leave a COVID comment.
He didn't look like himself. I think it's hard as well to play a however long season. What is it now?
82.
Is it still 82? I know they were talking.
They went back to 82.
Okay, because again, not to be political, there's a lot of talk with LeBron James too of it's too long of a season. Anyways, 82 game season. He's getting older. Not old, older. He's not super young anymore. And look at his team right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're 14-12, which isn't a bad record. But again, they're in the East. They're not going to win the championship this year. No. There's probably not going to be a super deep playoff run as well. A lot of crap going on with Ben Simmons.
Get rid of him and move on.
Yeah. I feel, and I'm not an Embiid fan at all. Mm-hmm. Do not like the guy. But some sympathy here. That would suck to be just playing like all these games and just know like, oh, my organization is in the crapper right now. Yeah. We're not going to go deep this year. And I'm the guy that's all the weight and pressure is on to perform.
And Philly fans are brutal. Yeah. And if I don't come out here and have 40 a night and win, I'm going to get all sorts of crap.
Yep. I think in these next, upcoming off season, there's going to be quite a few big moves.
I think a lot of players are going to be demanding trades.
Yeah. I think this season has been weird.
Yeah.
I think what's going on, like the Nets are not very dominant.
They're not dominant, but they're number one.
Yeah, in the East.
Yeah.
And they're not like dominating their opponents either.
No.
And it's not like they're way ahead in first either.
No.
And the West is kind of where I think it should be.
Golden State's a shocker to me.
It's a shocker, but I'm also not like, oh, they shouldn't be there. You know what I mean?
They're watching them play. They're clearly the number one team in the league right now.
Yeah. I think Phoenix ends up passing them throughout the season.
Yeah.
I think Phoenix ends up in one.
I hate that.
I hate Chris Paul. I'm a big Devin Booker fan.
I do.
I love Devin Booker.
I like Devin Booker's competitive edge.
Yeah.
And his competitive spirit. Very Kobe Bryant-esque.
Yeah. Right? One, he's quiet, and man, that dude, I could watch that man shoot. Just like he has the most perfect form and follow through on everything, and he's always squared at the back. He is, if any kid wants to learn how to shoot, parents, if you want to teach your kids how to shoot, Devin Booker is the man.
Yeah. Looking at the Jazz stat line against Philly, Clarkson 11, Bogdanovich 14, Conley 10, Rudy Gay 10, Rudy Gobert 17, Joe Ingles 11, Donovan 22, Whiteside 14, Royce was 7. Like, there's 8 guys in double figures again. Royce is the lone man out, but that's okay. I'm sure he doesn't mind.
Yeah.
But it's just we're starting to get team efforts with Donovan still
playing well,
shooting well. And it's what we need. So like we posed at the beginning of this, how do we get the Jazz? How do we? Because we have so much say in what they do.
I call Quinn up every night after these. And
what do the Jazz need to do to continue to play like this consistently over a long 82-game season that they've still got 3/4 of the way to go, plus then the playoffs to elevate come playoff time?
Ball movement, I think, is the number one key. Mm-hmm. Donovan Mitchell, I say only, has 22 this game. Shoots well, like good percentage. I think he needs to quit thinking he has to do everything himself. I think he still needs to be putting up the same amount of shots, but after the ball swings around to him, or he has help creating some of these shots, because these games where he has 7 turnovers, 5 turnovers, these high turnover games, it's him trying to do everything one-on-one. Mm-hmm. And occasionally that's fine. I think there are moments where Donovan needs to try and take his guy to the basket, but to do that every game, and I think the same thing with Jordan Clarkson, he's relying heavily on one-on-one stuff instead of, games like this against the 76ers, we see the whole team come to play, which I think is what they're going to need to come, especially playoff time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm not going to go there.
What is it?
I'm not going to jinx us.
Let's hear it.
All season long, in my mind, I've been wondering, when does the injury bug hit? And who's it going to hit? It happens, right? Every season it happens. I know Rudy Gay missed time at the beginning of the season, but I don't think that was the injury bug the Jazz are going to face. Something is going to happen to somebody at some point in time.
The way the Jazz play right now really prevents a lot of potential injury. Like, I think your biggest worry, number one, Mike Conley, just age. We're talking about like muscle tears, stuff like that. Nothing like crazy.
Yeah.
Muscle tears, stuff like that with Mike Conley.
The last 2 back-to-backs, he's actually played in them, even though his minutes are down on the second night.
Yeah.
When they started this season, he wasn't playing the back-to-backs. Now he is.
Donovan Mitchell, he just goes hard to the rim. That's the number one worry for me. Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert are probably your 2 main guys where it's like, they could definitely...
They could roll an ankle. They could...
Yeah. Come down on somebody wrong, break a wrist. They're your 2 guys who, I'm worried about them because they're the only guys who have that like major impact playing. Mm-hmm. Everybody else, for the most part, it'd have to be something like some freak accident where it's like, man, didn't see that coming.
Yeah. Rewinding, backing up a little bit, my thoughts on how the Jazz do this for the remainder of the year. If we get rid of the injury bug, we don't have that going. I think it's all about these players continuing to play and fill their role.
Yeah.
I think that's the key to why Golden State's so good this year and why they were so good in the past is everybody knew the role, everybody filled their role, and didn't try to do more. I feel like Bogey has been driving to the basket less these last 4 games. So he's filling his role, just being outside shooting. I feel like Joe has been more aggressive these games in trying to create, which has given Whiteside and Gobert better looks and more opportunities. Everybody's just doing what they need to do, and the win column's stacking up.
Yeah, like talking about this earlier with Golden State. Same thing for the Jazz. Ball needs to move. Guys need to fill their roles. Guys need to quit trying to play outside of their roles and be something they're not. Nobody expects Bogdanovich to come in every game and be this, 35-point scorer. We have separate guys for separate things, and like I said, we're on this little win streak right now, and I think it's because guys are looking to fill their roles and play as a unit instead of a bunch of really good basketball players trying to play separately.
Yeah. Okay. I totally forgot. How did we not cover this with the Minnesota game? Patrick Beverly and Anthony Edwards comments, okay? At halftime, Beverly says in his on-court interview that, and here's his quote, okay? Patrick Beverly says, "We know they have the defensive player of the year, quote unquote, defensive player of the year in Rudy Gobert, so we just wanted to get out and play fast." So his quote unquote comment when he says that, that's a clear shot at Rudy Gobert, right? Saying that he didn't feel like he deserved the award. But it is what it is. Then he goes on after the game, he reiterates some of those sentiments by saying, "If I'm defensive player of the year, I'm guarding the best player no matter what. I'm not roaming. It's no discredit to Royce O'Neal or any of the others on their team, but if I'm defensive player of the year, I'm not guarding Royce O'Neal. I'm guarding Mike Conley. I'm guarding Donovan Mitchell. I'm guarding Bogdanovich. You got Rudy Gobert out there guarding Vanderbilt, and every time I hear he's defensive player of the year, so whatever." That's what he has to say. I mean, I understand to a point that he's like, well, why is Rudy not guarding Anthony Towns? But so you want your 7'1", 7'2" big man to guard Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James and Damian Lillard, and Beverly just needs to shut up.
Yeah, well,
he doesn't know what he's saying.
So this is my favorite thing. It's guys like Beverly who are averaging, and these are his stats right now, 8.5 points per game, 4.5 assists per game, 32% from three, 48% from the field. Doesn't average a steal. He's at 0.8 steals per game and 0.9 blocks per game. Doesn't average a single block or a single steal per game.
Be
defensive player of the year. And
Beverly's a great defender.
Yeah.
But he is not what he once was.
No.
And to take shots at Rudy Gobert, I think, is a very interesting thing to do.
And you just lost by 32 points, dude.
Yeah. So then,
if you win, maybe you can take some shots. And in that game, he had a good game. He had 16 points.
Yeah.
2 rebounds, 2 assists.
Gets a technical for running his mouth, trying to get in Gobert's head.
No steals, no blocks, and a turnover.
Yeah.
Such a mediocre player to be talking trash.
Yeah.
And it's not like Rudy had this amazing game. He had 13 and 10 with a block, but then it comes out against the 76ers tonight, and maybe he took that personally. Comes out and has 17 points, 21 rebounds, 2 blocks, and was just an absolute beast.
Yeah. Anthony Edwards also shares his thoughts on Gobert and says, "I don't get why we couldn't finish on Rudy Gobert. He don't put no fear in my heart. I don't know why." So maybe he doesn't put fear in your heart, but he makes it so you can't put the ball in the basket. They at the rim, they couldn't get Jack going.
Yeah.
But
and then Anthony Edwards goes on to say that Porzingis is like the best rim protector in the league. He said, "Anytime I go against Porzingis, I don't get no layups." Porzingis? What are you talking about? Joel Embiid? Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
That is a big body to go against.
Even recently, Anthony Davis, has been getting a lot of blocked shots. Why am I drawing a blank? Miles Turner, I would not want to go meet that guy in the paint. Like, there are some other players that, he probably could have thrown out there, but Porzingis? Anyway, these guys are crazy, but they have their platform to stand on and speak.
And here's Rudy Gobert's defense. This is his graph, okay? Led the league in contested shots this season. So this is, I think, last year.
Okay.
And he also allowed the lowest efficiency in the NBA among 160 players who were the closest defender on at least 500 shots this season.
So not just in the paint, but any shots. Most of the shots he's guarding are in the paint, right? But
yeah, some guys I think just get like offended and insecure.
They just got thumped.
Yeah,
they were looking for somebody to pick a fight with.
Yeah.
And Rudy Gobert, the Frenchie, seems like the easiest target.
And here, I like this. Regardless of how one feels, and this is from Bleacher Report. Regardless of how one feels on Gobert's defense, it wasn't the primary reason for Utah's dominant win Wednesday. Ultimately, Minnesota's defense was problematic as the Jazz shot 56.8% from the field and made 25 three-pointers. Donovan Mitchell led the way with 36 points. How are you talking trash when Donovan Mitchell drops like 36 points on you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Where is Patrick Beverly when Donovan has 36?
Yeah. Who are you guys in that game, Beverly?
Yeah.
So, all right. Appreciate you guys tuning in and watching. Upcoming games real quick here. One last one. Road trip, finishing it up at Washington. Dylan, you thought the Jazz would go 3-1 on the road trip?
Yes.
I thought they'd go 2-2. So we'll see how they do Saturday night against Washington. Then we come home against the Clippers. Those will be the only two games that we cover in the next podcast because we'll release the next one before the Friday night game.
Huge home
San
stretch
Antonio.
Coming up.
Yep. Another lot of home games against some decent teams, some 500 teams.
We got the Christmas game as well this year.
Yes, that'll be fun to watch.
And good for the Jazz players because they are at home until after Christmas.
Yep.
So they need to spend
the holidays with the fam.
Yep. The NBA was very nice to them this year.
Yeah. So we'll next podcast we'll cover the game at Washington, and then the Clippers are in town against us on Wednesday, December 15th. So go Jazz. Take note.